Greetings. This is my Priority Bicycles model 600X, or 600, not 600X bike. It's my 2-year review, and I've done about 5,200 miles on this bike. So let's get some quick nuts and bolts out of the way for the people who don't want to stick around for all the nitty-gritty details, and we'll just go ahead and say a couple things. Would I buy this bike again? Yes. Should you buy this bike if you're looking for a good bike? Yes. Why should you buy this bike? Because of this gearbox right here. The pinion gearbox and the belt drive technology gives you a low maintenance bike. So let's talk about some other things. The annual automotive trends report from the Environmental Protection Agency, this is the United States, shows the average 2021 model year new vehicle fuel economy was 25.4 miles per gallon. Up to convert that on your own if you're on the metric system. So if we divide that MPG by 5,200 miles, the miles on the bike, we get 204.7 gallons of gas, which would be the vehicle equivalent if I was driving, not biking, to work every day. And if we multiply that by $5, which is the average cost of fuel per gallon in the state I live in, which is California, we get to $1,025. So there's definitely some fuel savings there, and over time I hope to have this bike long enough that the fuel savings alone offsets the cost of ownership of this bike. So that's the shifter. It's cable actuated to a planetary gear set. There's 12 speeds and 600% gear range, which is really all you need. When the pedal's straight up like that, that's the best position to shift in. If you do have power or torque on the pedals, the shifter won't shift. So that's just how it's designed. They have since released an electronic shifting system, and sounds like that's pretty cool. I'm still glad I got the analog one because it's just one less electronic component to have to maintain over time. Kickstand's great. We just looked at that. You'd be surprised at how useful a kickstand is, especially if you're touring and have bags. And this one is the same one they installed from the factory, so it works really well. I put on the Porter Rack. This is for Priority. It's great for when you're mailing packages, like your Amazon returns or just any package that doesn't fit in your panniers. And this is the front wheel. I have replaced the front wheel on this because I thought the dynamo hub on the original one went bad. However, it was just the front light. I've also replaced the front tire a couple times just due to wear and tear, and the narrow front tire I'm running now just works better when it comes to fender rubbing. So there's a look at the new light that needs to go on, and it's on this bench power supply. One thing I note is, this is my critique, is this light assembly is not that good or reliable. You really want the rear light. It's the most important light in terms of safety for your daytime riding and your nighttime riding, in my opinion. You do need a front light for nighttime riding too. However, if any component in the system breaks, the whole thing stops working in terms of the hub and the front light, because the front light has capacitors that power the rear light. For that reason, after these things broke due to just wear and tear, I installed aftermarket lights that are much brighter. So this one's 350 lumens. I'll put a link to this one in the description below. Same with the one on the front. These are connected with micro USBs to this Anchor power brick, which lasts about a month to 6 weeks, depending on how much I'm riding and the time of year. And so I keep the front light on flasher during the daytime, normal mode at night, and then the rear light on flasher. So having that high visibility is always important. If it's raining, I unplug the USB cables and cover the port covers so those stay dry, and that's my workflow. And I still get most of what I got with the Priority lights in terms of, something that's automatic that doesn't require me to unplug and charge lights every time I go biking. I just unplug this battery and charge it about once every 6 weeks or so. So that's a better system. And again, if you're by the priority light bike when the front lights stops working, just don't try and fix it. I would encourage you to just install aftermarket lights right away and avoid the sunk cost fallacy of trying to fix priority bike lights that come stock. They're just not built well, and in my opinion they shouldn't even be on the bike. They should have just deleted those parts because they're too hard for them to support. Ask me how I know how. These are the Malaco bars. They're an aftermarket part, not made by Priority. One thing I will note is that the cable lengths for the shifters and the brake levers didn't have to be adjusted, so those work great. And then it holds a drink holder, which I typically use for my phone, which you just saw. So that's the bars. This is the frame bag. I handmade this with some fabric that's made for outdoor furniture, reupholstery or upholstery, and then it's attached to the frame with zip ties. Works for me. Love the bag. It's got my repair kit for my tubeless tire setup, the batteries, and I'll typically have my gloves in there too when I'm riding in colder weather. So frame bag for the win. And due to the frame design, you can have a fatter frame because the gearbox is so wide at the bottom. Going back up here to the shifters, this is kind of a cool pro tip. You can put some grip tape on the shifters and you'll just have a much more tactile feel. So I've done that to both brake levers. And then going down here, these are the original rotors. They're holding up really well. I've actually only replaced the brake pads on this bike maybe one time off the top of my head. I might have done the rear brake replacement 2 times. And then again, this is the narrower set of tires. It's a few millimeters narrower than the ones that came stock when I purchased the bike. And these, you just get less fender rubbing, which is great. Fender rubbing is an issue on this bike. It's just hard to have, such large fenders that cover so much of the wheels with such wide wheels. Looking at the rear wheel, it's the original wheel. I did have a spoke brake thanks to TSA and flying the bike on a bike tour. And so I've replaced that and got to learn more about the hub assembly and taking that apart so I could access the spoke holes. This is the original seat. One thing I'd like to do if I put more money into this bike is put a dropper seat on, just because I'm 5'10" and I have pretty long legs, so the seat's pretty high for me to get a good foot position within the crank. However, it's not very comfortable when you're kind of like going stop and go, so having a dropper seat would be nice because then you just drop the seat when you're like at a stop sign or something and you're much closer to the ground, plant your feet really well, and then lift it up when you're moving again. So this just shows that distance. It's about 11 inches from the top of the seat, or 30 centimeters for the folks on the metric system. So that's something I would change in terms of design, even though dropper posts are typically made for gravel and mountain bikes. I think it's a nice luxury for a commuter bike. But the saddle itself is great. Carbon seat posts holding up fine. This is the original belt, original cogs, original gearbox. I have a whole series on how you can do a $1 oil change on the Priority or the Pinion gearbox, so just look for that in my playlist below. But it's just held up well, and I think it will hopefully do another 5,000 miles easy. This is a new front wheel that I purchased to try and fix the lighting problem. That's its own saga that I won't get too much into. Just trust me when I say buy aftermarket lights and don't waste time trying to fix your lights when they break, because you'll just waste a lot of time, unless you got a lot of time, but still use aftermarket lights because it's good to have redundancy and reliability. All right, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comment section below, and we will see you around, maybe in 2 more years on this bike.